But the next item on our agenda happens to be what is usually one of the most moving aspects of this event. Has to do with the tributes that are given by persons who really know our honoree. Sometimes they are family members, and sometimes they are not. But the one thing that all of them have had an uncanny ability to do is to keep their tributes within the time frame. Now, by the way, for those of you who are thinking that, I know some of you have probably looked up here and you said, Phil and you have similar dress, dark suit, white shirt, red tie, and Vincent has a gray suit and a white tie. Well, you could say that maybe he didn't get the email, which is probably the case. But what is really disappointing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we actually were going to do a song and dance routine as the Three Tops. But we decided not to do that. Our honoree is known to many people, but there are three people who are going to come forward and honor him with their own tributes. The first is a gentleman who probably needs no introduction to this audience, but who has established himself in many areas of Bermuda life and has himself become an outstanding physician, surgeon, business icon. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. James King.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I received a phone call one evening, and I thought it was a call inquiring about my health, only to find that Malcolm was running out of people to do things for. But knowing him as I do, there would be no way that I could ever deny any request that he would make. My introduction to Malcolm goes back probably 20 years, thereabouts. And I can remember having discussions with his father about this young man who was pursuing a career in medicine and surgery. And we were thinking of what could we do to entice him back to Bermuda. And after a number of discussions, I suddenly realized that Malcolm had and has an amazing level of curiosity. And when I look at what he has achieved over time, that portrays and evidences the curiosity, and along with the curiosity, an outstanding intellect. There are not many students who in their late teens will say, I want to go to Japan to study Japanese, particularly from the Bermuda environment. But that broad-ranging interest is one of the driving forces of this outstanding young man. And I think another attestation to Malcolm is the fact that he has a level of humility, and whilst he achieves success, that's never a flag or a banner that you'll ever see posted by him. For him to seek and gain the awards of a Rhodes Scholarship and then delay his entry into medicine in order to accomplish that, again, signifies and typifies the nature of the individual. But I think when he chose Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, he began a course in life that was studied by and followed by many, many others. And if we go back into the late 1800s, the names that some of you may be familiar with, there was a Dr. Welsh, there was a Dr. Halsted, there was a Dr. Osler, a Dr. Cushing, and a Dr. Lister. Lister, perhaps all of you will be familiar with because there's a chemical that we use in everyday life today called Listerine. And when you stop and think that here was a man at a time when many of us, had we been there and contracted an illness, we would have seen our preacher and said goodbye, because infection was one of the factors that did us all in. These individuals all were associated with Johns Hopkins Hospital. And there, particularly Halsted, he began in the 1890s to create divisions of surgery. And we saw, urology emerge as a practice. We saw general surgery emerge. We saw radiology emerge. And we saw neurosurgery emerge, amongst a few. However, when Malcolm began his sojourn, he began in a discipline called CVT, cardiovascular thoracic surgery. If we look at that division today, it comprises a minimum of 3 divisions. There's cardiac surgery, there's thoracic surgery, and there's vascular surgery. And I'll focus for a little while on thoracic surgery, because Malcolm's initial interest in training was in cardiac and thoracic surgery. And at that point in time, at Hopkins in particular, the thoracic division of cardiothoracic surgery was the country cousin. And I remember discussing with Malcolm and saying, cardiac surgeons are a dime a dozen. But the one real opportunity that exists that I can see for you is to focus on thoracic surgery, because that was the one that had suffered neglect. And over time, Malcolm has risen to that challenge, has succeeded and excelled in that particular arena, to the extent one day I had to call upon him, and he says, no, I can't do anything. I'm going to play golf with my dad. So he says, well, who was the patient you want to send to me? I said, it was me. He says, oh, well, you better come tomorrow then. But as time has evolved since then, he could have said to me, if you really waited just a little while longer, what was an 8-inch cut could have become 3 half-inch cuts. But unbeknownst to me, coming from Bermuda, we just followed the advice we were given. But in closing, I can but say I can think of no one more deserving of this tribute than you, kind sir. Thank you.